Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today is the beginning of something very exciting. So I had a very exciting idea to read my favorite booktubers' favorite books. And I know that this isn't entirely original. I know other people have been doing this, but I wanted to hop on the trend because I think it would be so fun. So I chose two booktubers and both of them responded to me pretty quickly through email and gave me personalized recommendations. So in this video, which is part one, I'm going to be reading Kat's favorite books from Paperback Dreams. I've been watching her channel for quite a while now. I love her personality, I love how excited she gets about books, and I love how honest she is about books. So I really wanted to read her favorite books. So I've chosen 4 books for this video. 3 of them I chose on my own, and 1 of them I asked for recommendations, just based on what I knew she liked. So I chose Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. She talks about this series a bunch. She read it somewhat recently, and basically this was the book series that got her into romance, and she's always talking about how great it is. And I've been interested in getting into some romance just for kind of a fun, lighthearted thing, because I read so many heavy books. So this sounds like a really fun read, and because it is one of her favorite books, and she's not really a romance person, but this got her into romance, I felt like I had to read it. Then I chose Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer. So this one I know almost nothing about. I just know that she has mentioned it many times as one of her favorite books of all time. And I'm interested to see if I like it or not. It sounds interesting, so I figured I had to read it. And it sounds promising. It sounds like something I'll like, so hopefully I enjoy it. So next is a book that she actually recommended me personally. I asked for a thriller recommendation and she gave me I'm Thinking of Ending Things as one option, which is obviously one of my favorite books. But she also gave me No Exit by Taylor Adams. So I also know nothing about this book. I just know she told me to read it, so I'm gonna read it. It sounds very thrilling and interesting and kind of has I'm Thinking of Ending Things vibes. And then finally, I couldn't make a video about Kat without reading Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Again, I know nothing about this, other than the fact that in every single video that she's ever done, probably not every single one, but like 99%, she's talked about this book. It's her favorite book of all time. She's constantly telling everyone to read it, and I figured I could not make a video about her without reading it. I think I'm going to pick up Get a Life, Chloe Brown first, just because it's the one that I've been most excited to get into, but I also have Radio Silence on audio, and the audiobook is actually going to expire on Libby at this point, so I'm gonna get started on this on audio, and this one I'm gonna be reading physically. So without further ado, let's get into the reading vlog. Okay, so yesterday I read a bunch of Get a Life, Chloe Brown, but I couldn't update because I went from one job to the next and had no time in between, and I got home late. But I actually got quite a bit of reading done at work. It was a slow day at both jobs, so that was productive for reading. But I just want to talk about how completely shocked I am by this book. So just knowing Kat's reading habits from watching her videos for so long, I knew that this wasn't going to be the stereotypical romance because she was not into romance until she read this. So I knew that kind of going into it, but I still had reservations about what kind of book it was going to be. I really thought that it was going to be a lot more cheesy and cliche in its writing style. I didn't think that the writing would feel intellectual in any way. I thought it would just be very simple. There actually have been like several more intellectual moments in the book, and the writing, while it feels very accessible and understandable, it doesn't feel like this basic romance style that I anticipated. I don't even know how to explain it really, but I probably just had a lot of prejudices towards the romance genre, and I was expecting it to just be bad. So I was just shocked to see that I genuinely am enjoying the writing style of this book. So that was just a huge epiphany for me. In terms of the characters and the plot, I think the characters feel realistic, and they are so far pretty well developed. We're having a very slow burn in terms of the relationship and them getting together. I feel like it's not rushed, it's not insta-love. So I am enjoying that aspect of it, but I'm just enjoying how much the characters are developed and how the perspective is third person, but we're kind of getting chapters from each of their point of views. So it's a third person kind of over the shoulder narration of each character. And it's not every other chapter exactly, but it's close. So we're getting some of Redford's perspective and some of Chloe's perspective and just going back and forth. I don't know if that's typical of romance. The only thing that I can think of in terms of like that kind of dynamic is Normal People by Sally Rooney, which gives us both characters' perspectives, but I wouldn't necessarily call that a romance. So is that more of a literary fiction kind of trope, or does a lot of other romance give you both the male and female perspectives in a heterosexual relationship? I don't know. So it's interesting to be getting his perspective, because going into it, I kind of just assumed it was only going to be Chloe telling us about what was going on. I am honestly considering going out and getting the other two in the series because I'm already really loving this book. So I am at page 139 out of, let's see, 369. So I am, like a third of the way through, a little over a third of the way through. And yeah, I'm going to continue reading this. And I think I'm actually going to start Radio Silence on audio because that audiobook is expiring. So I want to get started with that as well. And I will update you when I have more to say about either one. I decided to go for a drive and look where I ended up. No reason at all. Okay, sorry for the weird angle, but they did not have book 3, but I did get Take a Hint, Danny Brown, because I'm already obsessed with this book, so I need to read the next one. It won't be in this vlog, but it will be either in a future vlog or a wrap-up or something. I'm sure I'll talk about it. I'm very excited about it, so just my little mini haul of one book. I'm gonna head home now, and I will continue reading when I get home. Okay, so I am 30 pages away from finishing Get a Life, Chloe Brown. And I just wanted to come on here because I'm feeling really sad right now. I really love this book. I am sensing I'm going to give it a 5-star. The characters have so much depth to them. I feel like I really got to know each of them. And even though the focus is the relationship, obviously, because it is a romance, it didn't feel like that was the only focus. Each character had their very own story to tell. And I think that really helped me get connected to the book, and made it not feel cheesy or cliche or anything. Honestly, I'm shocked at how much it's affecting me. I don't want to spoil it necessarily, but the part that I'm at, there's this huge fight that they have, and Red is trying to deal with a lot of past trauma and in a horribly abusive relationship that he was in his past. And there was just a line where he was kind of talking to himself about the situation and trying to tell himself that it's not the same at all. And he keeps just repeating that Chloe isn't Pippa, his ex, over and over again. And something about that just totally wrecked me. Like, I am welling up with tears. I haven't cried, but I'm welling up with tears. Without going too much into it, I kind of get myself into the same anxiety loop as Red does occasionally. It doesn't happen as much anymore now that I'm almost a year into my relationship and things are pretty stable, and it doesn't really come up that often anymore, but occasionally it does. And I could feel that so much, and the way that Talia Hibbert explained his anxiety and his trauma, it touched me in such a way that I did not expect this book to have that effect on me, or to be able to draw out those emotions from me. So I don't really know what I was expecting, honestly, with this book. I was just expecting it to be very fluffy, and while parts of it are fluffy, I think overall it has so much more meaning and value than I originally thought it would. And I'm feeling like I'm gonna cry, so I'm gonna go finish this, and I will let you know what I think when I finish it. Okay, different day, same hoodie I was wearing in an earlier clip, but oh well. I was at work all day today at the library. It's been a really busy week. Everything's been a little chaotic. So I apologize for the lack of like fun and interesting vlog content. It's just, I'm extremely busy and I'm trying to find time to read in all of the chaos. But last night I did end up finishing Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and I did give it 5 stars. I don't have a ton more to say about it other than I really think that the characters were well-rounded. I think that Talia Hibbert's writing style is intelligent and witty and has so much more depth than I anticipated it having. And I did go out and purchase the second book in the series, and I'm planning on purchasing the third book soon because I kind of want to start them immediately. I'm not going to, for the sake of all the projects I have to do this month, but soon I do want to read the other 2 in the series. I think the purpose of these videos was not only to experience some of my favorite creators' favorite things, but to put myself outside of my comfort zone a little bit, because the people that I watch, I don't always align 100% with them on what they read. There are some booktubers that I watch that I align almost 100% with what they like, and then others, it's not quite the same. So I wanted to do this project to be able to get out of my box of what I read. And I do read relatively widely, but there are a few genres that I really don't touch at all. So I really wanted to be able to do that. Because of Kat, I read a romance for probably the first time that I've ever really read a romance, and definitely the first time an adult romance. And yes, it was very steamy, so that was fun too. But I really do appreciate being able to watch different people who have different perspectives and like different things and read a wide variety of things, because it has put me outside of my comfort zone, and it's given me a new, maybe not a whole genre that I want to continue reading, but at least a new author or a new series that I want to read. And I think that's valuable. Speaking of getting out of my comfort zone a little bit, I have started No Exit by Taylor Adams. I have more than started it actually at work. I got almost halfway through this because it was a very quiet and completely dead day at the library. But it's outside of my comfort zone because honestly, I don't read thrillers that much. I've wanted to get into them because I like psychological thriller and psychological horror movies a lot. But I've heard a lot about thrillers being very formulaic and predictable, so I'm interested to see if I find this one predictable. So far, the one big twist that's happened so far I didn't see coming. It's possible that I'm just really gullible and I believe the narrator 100% and I believe what's going on 100%, but nonetheless, I did not see it coming. So 1 point for the book, 0 points for me. This was the one that I specifically asked Kat to recommend. I asked her to recommend a thriller, and she gave me this one. So I'm hoping that I do really like it. So far, I do. I don't have a ton to say about the writing style. It feels just like a regular kind of thriller writing style. Nothing particularly unique or special about it. It is very fast-paced. You get a lot of plot, and you don't get a ton of character development. So far, at least, being like a little over a third of the way through. Almost halfway. This is not something that you read for the language or the literary merit or whatever. It's really a book for plot and for suspense and all of that, which so far it's doing very well. I didn't mention what this book is about. So basically, this young woman in college is going back home because her mom has cancer, and she's visiting her or trying to visit her before her surgery. And she gets stranded in a snowstorm at this rest area, and she sees this little girl in one of the people's vans, just like trapped in there in a dog kennel. Some scary shit. And then she has to figure out what the fuck to do about that, because she can't call anyone or do anything beyond what she can do herself. So it's quite a lot. I do really like the whole everyone is trapped and everything is taking place in this very small area with these very limited cast of characters. It kind of does remind me, if I'm thinking of ending things, just a little bit, because it is that kind of very contained, you know, small amount of characters, and in that one, they're just driving in the car for the entire book, and then they're in a house, and then that's pretty much it. In this one so far, I'm pretty sure that almost the entire book is going to take place in this one little rest area, which is such an interesting concept for a thriller. And the author does really have to focus on the details of what's happening, because they can't pull away and take you somewhere else or divert from, you know, the main plot by going somewhere else or anything. It all kind of has to be contained. So I'm going to continue reading this now. I am enjoying it so far, but I'm interested to see if it holds my attention throughout the whole book. Okay, so I am just sitting outside on my porch. It is beautiful today. I had the day off because I had an appointment, but I haven't updated you in a little bit, and I have been super busy. As I have said many times before, my life is crazy. But I did end up finishing No Exit. And honestly, I did have a lot of fun reading it, but in the end, I think it was kind of between a 3 and a 4 star for me. I posted about this on Instagram, and I think I am a bit desensitized to violence in books. I think it's easy to separate violence in real life versus violence in books and movies. But in terms of like book and movie violence, I've seen so many gory movies. I've read recently a few like really kind of scary, gory books. And I think that this one, while it did have gore and while it was violent in some aspects, it wasn't to the level of violence of like Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, which I just read recently, and that completely overwhelmed me and was just way too much. Honestly, it's probably a good thing that it wasn't terribly violent or gory or anything, because it wasn't overwhelming. It didn't feel like too much or too gross, and I could just have fun reading it and enjoying the suspense of it without being completely grossed out and scared. So I did appreciate it for that, but the only problem with that is that it becomes a bit predictable or a little bit lackluster. So while it was suspenseful, you didn't get quite the same high of like the thrill and the craziness of the book. So, like I said, it wasn't a bad book. I did really enjoy the act of reading it. I had a lot of fun just like whipping through it. I read it really fast, which I think works really well for thrillers because you're in it and you're in the suspense and you have to know what happens. And honestly, I think the reason why something like Pretty Girls got to me way more is because it involves sexual violence. And that is something that always triggers me in books and movies, and I will never get used to that. Whereas this one, it was just kind of physical violence, guns and all of that, which is obviously terrible, but I'm just kind of desensitized to it at this point, so it didn't super bother me. So this might tell you how many days I haven't updated you in, but I have started, there's a car. I have started both Sleepwalking and Radio Silence. I'm moving through these books rather quickly, which is totally fine. I'm on a roll. I'm not in a reading slump anymore. I was for a bit, but I'm back out of it. And I have begun Radio Silence on audiobook. I do have the physical book if I need to use it, but I wanted to listen to the audiobook because I was able to renew it at the library. Woohoo! So far, I'm not really sure how to feel about it. I don't love the parts where the actual radio show is happening. So far, that hasn't been super interesting, but Frances is interesting. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And this is obviously Kat's #1 favorite book of all time. So I hope that I really like it. I don't think I'm going to like it as much as she does, just going off of what I've read so far. But I hope I do like it, because it would be sad if I got through this whole video and I didn't like her favorite book of all time. But as for Sleepwalking, I am enjoying that one a lot so far. I don't know, like 50 pages into it. Not a whole lot to say about it at this point, just that I am enjoying the writing a lot. Because it is more of a literary fiction, there's a lot of depth to the writing. Not to say that the romance and the thriller don't have any depth to them, but it is a little bit different reading a literary fiction. So I'm going to take the opportunity on this beautiful day to go for a little rollerblade, and while I do that, I'm going to listen to more of Radio Silence, and I will update you when I have more to say about it. Okay, I'm a bit emotional. So I am at part 3 of Radio Silence. Things have taken a turn. So remember when I said I wasn't really attached to this book or these characters yet? No, that's not accurate anymore. There was just a screaming match that is extremely sad. And I am now attached to these characters for some odd reason, even though I, from the start, was like, I'm not attached to these characters. I don't relate to them. Clearly, relatability is not the only thing to get you attached to characters, because I am completely overwhelmed. Without spoiling anything, I can sense that this is going to continue being extremely sad and continue to completely rip my heart out. And I'm extremely nervous about that fact because I'm already getting emotional and we're not even, well, let's see, I'm close to 2/3 of the way through this. And I'm already feeling a bit of a mess. So we'll see how this goes. But in the beginning, I was kind of like, I like it, but I'm not 100% why Kat talks about it constantly. But I'm starting to feel that, and I will update you on how I feel about it if something else happens that makes me emotional. But my God, I am so sorry I ever doubted Kat's reasoning for loving this book. So I am 45 pages away from the end of Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer, and I have a small complaint that really bothered me. So there's this part where Julian, the main male character, is talking about Amish people and how they don't want to be photographed because they think that part of their soul will be taken away every time they're photographed. So then he relates that to sex, and he says, after you sleep with someone, she took away a small hunk of you. It wasn't bad as long as the relationship went on. It was something you didn't mind giving up because it would always be close by. It was only when things ended that you really felt the loss. And that kind of way of thinking, I understand that he's a young guy and he's trying to rationalize his feelings after sleeping with Claire. But that way of thinking is so terrible. I came from a very conservative Christian background, and I was told that, like, if you sleep around or sleep with anyone and if you don't marry that person, you're losing part of yourself. And that is such a damaging way to present sex and relationships. And just seeing it in this book, I realized that this book was from the 80s, so there is a bit of a different perspective now. But it just bothered me so much, and I don't know if I can get over that. I also realized that I haven't updated a bunch about this book, but honestly, it's because I've been so bored. I'm so sorry, Kat, but honestly, like the first third of this book, I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's about Claire, and she's a death girl, and she's obsessed with this poet, and there's this group of girlfriends, and like all of that was very interesting, and I was very intrigued by Claire's life and her backstory and her relationship with Julian, and then all of this discussion of her favorite poet, Lucy Asher, I believe. All that discussion of her favorite poet and her life and her parents and like her parents' history and everything. It just got a little boring and honestly kind of lost my interest. It didn't feel like it was in the present anymore and that we got like all the different plot and things that were happening. And I get that it is a more character-driven story, and usually I'm fine with that, but it just didn't really hold or capture my interest that much after the first like third of the book. So I just haven't been able to really push through it. This has been taking me longer than any of the other books to get through, partially because I've been really busy and partially because I feel like this book is putting me into kind of a reading slump, and it's just unfortunate because I was really looking forward to reading this and hopefully enjoying it. But unless the end has some big thing that turns the whole thing around for me, I think this is probably going to be like a 3-star. Yeah, not a favorite of mine. So I am very sorry, Kat, but not loving it. I finished Radio Silence by Alice Oseman a few days ago, and I needed a little bit of time to process because holy shit, this book ruined my emotions for a while. It was a 4 out of 5 for me just because I still didn't entirely connect with these characters on a personal level. And I know that you don't have to be able to love a book, but because it is YA and it definitely feels like a quintessential kind of teenage story, that's not something that I particularly connect to anymore, and it's not something that I love to read. So I couldn't give this a 5 out of 5. But that being said, I think that these characters were so well developed. They were fully rounded characters. I felt like they were thought out in their entirety. I wrote down some themes that I kind of discovered in this book, including found family, discovering sexuality, life purpose / finding what makes you happy, and then guilt and blame, and then also internet fame and how that affects your mental health. And I can definitely see where Kat is coming from with her love of this book. I think a lot of those kind of themes could have been very impactful to her when she was a teenager, because I think she read this for the first time when she was a teenager. So I can see that kind of like finding yourself and figuring out who you are and being lost and trying to discover yourself. All of those things I feel like would be universal to any teenager. So I can see why Kat liked it so much, and it's her favorite book. But just personally, because I'm reading this as an almost 21-year-old, it doesn't have quite the same impact as it would have if I was a teenager. But I do still think that it was beautifully written. It definitely did pull me in. I was very emotional over the characters. And I think that it was, like I said, incredibly well done. So 4 out of 5 for this one. And I read this in like a little over 24 hours. I read it in one day. And then the last like hour and a half of the audiobook I read the next morning. Pretty early in the morning when I was opening up the coffee shop. So I read it very quickly. It is like a 400-something page book, almost 500 pages. Actually, it is 500 pages. Wow. So yeah, I read that very fast. But overall, enjoyed this a lot. Okay, I have officially finished Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer. I finished it when I was at work this morning. It was a pretty slow day, so I finished the last, 30 or 40 pages of the book. And I'll be honest, I didn't love it that much more than when I last talked to you. I ended up giving it 3 stars on Goodreads just because I really enjoyed the beginning, and honestly by the end I did enjoy the last little bit of it when it was talking about Claire kind of rejoining regular life instead of just being with the Asher family. So that part of it was interesting, but honestly, overall, I just felt like it was a bit flat. And maybe that was kind of the point just because of grief and Claire's inability to be emotional. I think that it probably was to a certain extent intentional, but that kind of writing style where it feels emotionless and flat, just personally, is not something that I can really connect to, even if it is intentional. And I can see the literary value of doing that, but it just didn't vibe with me. This was a book where I could pull a few quotes here and there that I thought were really well done or interesting, and that the writing was good, but overall it's just not something that I particularly connected to or loved really at all. So like I said, 3 stars just because I liked the concept, I liked the beginning and the end, but everything in between was just not really for me. But that being said, that concludes this vlog of reading Kat from Paperback Dreams' favorite books, or some of her favorite books. And honestly, overall, I think Kat has impeccable taste. I loved Radio Silence. I gave it a 4 stars. I loved Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I ended up picking up the other 2 in the series, so now I have the full set of the Brown Sisters trilogy, and I will be reading the other 2 very soon. Look how beautiful they are all together. I just love them so much. I'm so excited to continue this. So thank you so much, Kat, for getting me into this series. Because you're the main person I've seen talk about it. Obviously, it's been all over the place, but I've seen Kat talk about it so much. So I definitely wanted to give that a read, and I'm so glad I did. As for Sleepwalking, like I said, a 3-star. And for No Exit, I kind of am between a 3 and a 4. I haven't like fully decided what I'm going to give it yet. It definitely was interesting and thrilling at times, but it just didn't really pack the punch that I expected from it. But like I said, overall, it was so much fun reading Kat's favorite books. I hope that this vlog was interesting or enjoyable. I know I didn't really do much, but to be honest, all I do with my life is go to work and read books. So that's all I've been able to film for you guys. So if you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for the next one because I will be doing another vlog reading my favorite booktubers' favorite books, and I will be reading Noelle Gallagher's favorite books. So if you're into this kind of video, make sure to stay tuned for that, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.